What's up, guys? This is the Gospel According to Mark with a C. He is I, and I am he. Just taking some time to tell you exactly what's on my mind. And guys, this is just going to be a short one because I feel like I just have to get it off my chest because sometimes, when I go online and I see these bullshit articles talking about how certain plot holes in the movies, in particular Star Wars, are going to be filled by comics. I just want to put it out there, guys, that my philosophy is, and my very strong belief is that if you have to explain plot holes in your movie through a comic, then your movie is trash. Okay, it's like when I grew up, I definitely, I watched the originals, I watched the prequels and stuff like that. I definitely picked up the comics, the enhanced, especially the comic book adaptations, right? I made sure that I got the comic book adaptations, which were just literally the movie in comic form. All right, so there was nothing in those comics that explained further, or occasionally you get somebody's thought process in a yellow box or something like that, but or a thought bubble, but that's about it. It's like they didn't actually show you extra shit that didn't happen on the movie screen to fill in that plot hole that they didn't even realize they were creating until they saw a backlash from the fans. A good example of this would have been in The Force Awakens when J.J. Abrams, Mr. Innocent, had Chewbacca walk past Leia after Han died and didn't acknowledge her, at all. And it wasn't until years later that I saw a story where somebody said, "Oh, now it's been fixed." And in the comic, they implied, I don't even know if they showed it, but they implied that Chewbacca and Leia had a moment where they consoled each other after Han's death. And here's the thing, if you're trying to attract a new audience, especially normies, you must realize normies don't buy that extra stuff. They don't buy comics and stuff like that. And if that's the audience that you're playing to, well, their expectations are going to be very low. So what's the point in even putting it in there? What's the point in even making a comic if they don't care. What you're doing is you're playing towards the real fans, right? And if you're going to play towards the real fans, then you probably should have had somebody doing the story in the first place who knew better than to have an omission of that magnitude in their movie. You don't overlook some shit like that unless you just honestly don't care, or, there are some people out there who say that J.J. Abrams is a fan. Well, maybe he's just doing too much, because the last I looked, he has had his hand in so many things, so many other projects. And I know it's not just him who's writing these things and everything, but he's at the head of it, So the story group, I guess, and everybody who's involved, editing, somebody should have said somewhere along the way, at a test screening, something like that, maybe Chewie should have had a moment with Leia. Why didn't nobody speak up? Is this the kind of show that they're running where you mean to tell me even if somebody knew that that was happening, nobody is courageous enough to raise their hand and say, "Excuse me"? That's not cool. It just shows me that you're surrounded by a bunch of yes people who unfortunately are afraid to protect the integrity of what you're working with. I can tell you like firsthand that I am not going out, like I used to be a collector. I used to be a hardcore comic collector, but I am not going out specifically to buy Star Wars comics to help explain what was not explained on the screen. I've been wondering how not Palpatine, well, as it turns out, maybe, but I was wondering how Snoke was able to get access to Kylo Ren in the first place. I think there was one throwaway line where somebody says, well, it was too late by that time, he was under Snoke's influence. Well, who was Snoke to the Skywalkers? How did he get himself into their inner circle to get Luke Skywalker's nephew, to get Han Solo and Leia's son? Like, how did that happen? What did it even look like? How did Kylo even get intrigued by the dark side of the Force? You figure with a pedigree like he had, that's nothing but cautionary tales. It's like in my family, unfortunately, I've had my share of alcoholics in the family, drug addicts in the family, and I talk to my son about that all the time. It's like you have to be careful. We talk about health issues. In our family, we have a history of high blood pressure, and I always tell my son, be careful. That what you're eating might be good, but it's not good for you. You have to do everything in moderation. So it's like you warn your loved ones about the direction that they're going in, if you feel that it's going to be self-destructive or it's going to lead into something that they're not going to be able to get out of, So what did that look like when Kylo Ren was growing up? When Ben Solo was growing up? Obviously, they named him Ben after Ben Kenobi, so he knew something about the history. He must have known that he was named after a great Jedi, but instead of worshiping or exalting or respecting his namesake, Ben, he chose to not even admire Anakin, but to admire Darth Vader. It's like, how do you look over that? How do you discard Ben, all right, Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan, and you overlook the man that Anakin, his grandfather, used to be, to go to his twisted self, his fallen self, know that that was his fallen self, and still you go down that road. It's like, if you can't show me that on the screen, not even in a flashback, if you can show Luke getting knocked on his ass CGI style in a flashback, then you should have been able to show me something about how Kylo Ren got twisted. There is a major plot hole that loyalists and fans and lovers of the sequel trilogy just don't want to accept. And I understand to some degree we do that. In the original trilogy, there were several, plot problems that, we chose to overlook, but nothing to my knowledge on that level. It's like, you got to show me, how did this kid end up the way that he was? But they're not interested in doing that. And attempting to put it in a comic is not going to help. Because you must realize, generations from now, if you're trying to make a timeless classic and not just run off with a bag full of money, generations from now are going to wonder about these things, and they're not going to have the comics available to them. So, none of that makes any sense. That's not good business sense. It's not good storytelling at all. So I stand firm in my belief. If it didn't happen on the movie screen, and you have to put it in a comic to fill your plot holes, then your movie is trash. And all too often, that's what we see from The Force Awakens to The Last Jedi to The Rise. It's like, there are too many plot holes, there are too many things that don't get explained, and that's because there was no overrunning arc. There was no overrunning narrative and the creative forces behind each movie. They weren't following an outline. All they had was an agenda. All right, so they had these boxes that they were checking off. Make sure that you have the Asian, make sure that you have the blacks, make sure that you have the lesbian kiss, all that stuff. But the last thing that's on their mind is the plot. And that's the reason why we push back the way that we do. Because all we want to see, there is nothing wrong with diversity. All right, you can have the complete spectrum of human beings and species that you want. I wouldn't mind that at all, as long as these were well drawn, well thought out characters. But that's not what we got. Now that it's over, it's safe to say that it's not what we got. And Disney Lucasfilm, if you're going to learn from this at all, then you're going to have to listen to the voices of the fandom menace in particular. All right, instead of demonizing these people, you need to be listening more. That's the only way out of this, because now that this is over, you're going to have to go on. You want to still do things with Star Wars, even though you foolishly ended the Skywalker saga. You're still going to have to go on. John Williams is stepping down, so somehow you're going to have to find a composer who can tap into the spirit of Star Wars the way that John Williams, the master, did. All right, there are so many challenges that come with all of this, because you guys want to push forward and disrespect the past and not listen to the fans and other creatives who have been in this property for so long. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. But one thing I do know is, like I said, if you need a comic to fill in your plot holes, then your movie, your series, your story is trash. All right, guys, I just wanted to put that out there real quick. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, whatever, you can get in the comment section and talk about it. And as always, you can like, share, subscribe. When you subscribe, please hit the notification bell and hit all, so you can get all notifications for any future videos that I do. And as always, you can catch me on Twitter. All right, guys, that's it for now. I'll catch you in the next one. This is The Gospel According to Mark with a C. Rock on.